New Mexico Crime Files, a deep dive into the archives, shocking and notorious cases, the arrests and what led to them, and what happened to the suspect. Here are your hosts, Dean Staley and Jessica Garate.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of New Mexico Crime Files. I'm KRQE's Jessica Garate, along with my co-anchor, Dean Staley.
Yeah, Jess, this is another really interesting story. And a couple of things going on. One, it's one of these stories that we see often where someone is behind the wheel and they're impaired, and that's a problem. But our investigative reporter in this story, Gabrielle Burkhart, did amazing work, a super deep dive into not just this one instance, but a number of instances with this particular person and really showing a problem with the system.
And it's heartbreaking video. You have children involved in some of these issues. Yeah. And then just seeing this woman is in trouble over and over and over again. And where is the disconnect? Where are we not going after these people? And when you watch just how high she is and that she's on the road next to everyone else is unbelievable.
Yeah. So this is Gabrielle Burkhart, an investigative story from November.
And
I did
want to mention that we are going to have Gabrielle Burkhart after the story, and
I forgot to tease the best part. I did.
The best part. She's going to join us today.
Can I apologize? I want to apologize. Gabrielle will be here right after this story, so we can pick her brain about how she got into this story. She'll have an update on where this things stand now. Okay. Now introduce the piece.
Now, this is from November 2022, KRQE's News 13 investigative reporter, Gabrielle Burkhart.
It's 10:30 at night.
10:47.
An Albuquerque police officer's lapel camera shows him responding to a call last year from concerned neighbors, saying a woman driving this car was passed out at the wheel in the middle of the road, the car in drive, and a baby in the back seat.
What are you doing? Albuquerque Police Department, man. I need you to step out.
Where are we?
Have a seat on the curb.
28-year-old Madalene Trujillo is disoriented. Her 7-month-old needs attention.
It's okay.
Officers try and comfort the baby boy.
Because she had this boil all up on her lap and her fingers are all burnt. And it smells horrible in here. Fell asleep in the middle of the road.
Because I'm tired. I've been going through a lot with my ex and stuff.
What have you been using today?
Nothing. I'm just tired, I said.
What have you been using today? Let's be honest.
The officer points out the foil all over the car.
I just want to know if you're going to be honest with me or not.
Okay. Well, I did a little bit of fentanyl, but that was way earlier.
While one officer rocks her baby to comfort him.
Baby's okay?
I'm not crying, though.
Yeah.
Trujillo fails her field sobriety tests. Police say they found blue pills, straws, and a pipe used to smoke methamphetamine. Trujillo is arrested for DWI, drug possession, impeding traffic, and child abuse. Her baby is picked up by his father.
I've been actively trying to find him for 2 whole weeks.
During Trujillo's booking process, she can't keep her eyes open. She spent a couple nights in jail and was released on her own recognizance. The following month, case dismissed, quote, pending the results of a drug test. 2 months after that, Trujillo had another run-in with police, another situation on the road that could have turned deadly. Trujillo veered into a crossing guard near a charter school on Yale near Gibson.
I had somebody.
Surveillance video captured the whole thing. You can see the crossing guard holding a stop sign, his back turned to a car speeding behind him, flies into the median and barrels into him. Police say he survived, but suffered head trauma and a broken leg.
I was feeling confused and I was gonna pull over and it just happened all of a sudden.
Okay, take deep breaths, okay?
She tells police she was on her way to UNMH for a medical issue.
Well, you said you were
dizzy.
Dizzy,
Yeah. But I've been feeling little dizzy spells. 7, 8, 9. Right? Left. I don't know how you. Okay. I'm confused. I'm sorry.
The test.
Police suspect she was high again. A blood sample was taken.
Does it make it more complicated when you have to try and prosecute and get a conviction of DUI with a blood draw versus a breathalyzer?
Yes, and that's specific to drugs.
Deputy DA Guinevere Ice explains in general, drug test results can take 5 to 6 months.
Obviously, we want to use that evidence. In Metro, I know there are fairly short time frames once a case is filed. So it's best practice to refile once we have the actual blood results.
In this case, Trujillo is charged with misdemeanor reckless driving. Blood test results are pending and additional charges will be added depending on results of the blood test, the report says. 3 months later, case dismissed, this time citing an officer failing to appear in court. 9 days after that dismissal, a New Mexico State police officer pulls over a car he says was speeding and swerving through traffic on I-25. And once again, a familiar story. Dash camera video from September of last year shows the traffic stop. The officer describes Trujillo as shaky and nervous.
I pulled you over, you're speeding like crazy fast up there, and you failed to maintain your lane a few times.
She struggles through another field sobriety test. Trujillo claims she was driving herself to a detox center.
So when's the last time you actually had anything?
Well, I feel jittery because I'm kicking Suboxone and I'm feeling jittery, and that's why I was trying to go to detox to kick it all the way because they have the right stuff to help me.
Trujillo is charged with another DWI and agrees to a blood draw again. Results are pending, the complaint says. In March of this year, that case is dismissed, noting the state declined to prosecute at this time. In that first DWI arrest last year, Trujillo told officers,
I would want to go to rehab and get off of the DWI too.
Yeah, it's the bad, the least of your worries, actually. It ain't going to be easy. You can't just turn on and off addiction. You got to get better, way better, and show for a long time.
We wanted to know if Trujillo did get help, and we tried to reach her. The public defender's office says sending someone to jail won't necessarily get them the help they need, adding it's harder to get into a rehab facility if someone misses an appointment, which Trujillo did at least once as the result of an arrest. Gabrielle Burkhart, KRQE Investigates.
Wow, an incredibly compelling story, a major, not just a problem on the streets for anyone who might be driving down the street, but Gabby, and let's introduce Gabrielle Burkhart, the investigative reporter on this story, is with us. Gabby, great job in this story. So compelling. And like I said, not just showing the surface, not just showing this one-off story, but giving us a look at this systemic problem that we have. An update, first of all, on where we are in this case.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the compliment, but as we all know at this table, these are not stories that we love to tell. It's really disheartening to see something like this. This first came to our attention actually after the crossing guard situation. I remember that came up in our news, and I think we had ran a short story about it. And I started looking into Madalene Trujillo, looking at her court records and seeing her history, and just realizing, man, there's been other instances where she's almost killed someone on the road. And one thing that I will say in reporting on stories where somebody is dealing with an addiction, like she admits to, is that she was forthright with she had taken fentanyl, she was impaired, and in all of these touch points with the law, with police, you wonder as a viewer, why isn't she getting help? What is happening? Why is this happening over and over?
Yeah.
Again, great reporting and just showing us and walking us through everything. And what surprised me is, these cases are happening a couple of days apart. There's just no, you can tell she's not learning her lesson and just keeps on going. And watching that crossing guard video was just horrific.
Yeah.
You see that and you're like, how has she not really hurt somebody? And he was obviously hurt, but not killed somebody. And then also seeing the cops holding the baby and just knowing that this baby is back there and mom's, passing out and the baby, he or she is not getting the attention that they need. Can you talk about just what it takes to get all these cases and how you pieced it all together?
Yeah, I watched hours of lapel video for this story, and that's a long story in TV time. It's 5 minutes long on air, but this is hours of lapel footage that I had requested through public records and received to just understand the full context of what was happening here. But to answer your question earlier, which I'm not sure I did, Dean, an update, right? The last record I just checked, the last time I see Madalene Trujillo come up in court records is that state police arrest. So that was, dismissed in 2022. We can only hope that she has not had more interactions with the law, but it's also hard trying to find somebody when they're not in the system, right? You don't know.
Sure.
Is she in a hospital? I did try to reach out to some of the family members involved when I did this reporting and just, didn't hear back. But that's a question mark, right? Like, she had these touch points. She had missed an appointment for rehab, which the law office of the public defender did tell me, when you miss an appointment like that and you have a bed available, like, it's hard to get back in. So it's a really devastating situation. The baby in the car was just completely heartbreaking. We're all parents at this table. Like, you just can't imagine, right? Like, that situation. The cops were really gentle with the child in this case. I was having tears in my eyes watching some of this lapel video, because the officer was rocking the baby in the car seat while another officer is trying to deal with the mother, give her field sobriety tests. And it's just really heartbreaking stuff.
Gabby, lots more, many more aspects to this story we'd like to cover, including addiction and trying to get people help, and also a follow-up on the crossing guard. We'll take a short break and we'll cover those when we come back.
Welcome back, everyone, and we are joined by our investigative reporter, Gabrielle Burkhart. Such a pleasure having you here today, breaking down just this heartbreaking case that she reported on back in 2022. And it looks at just the issues we're facing in our community with addiction, and then how it all plays out in the courts. And I think what really shocked me watching your story was, why is it taking 5 to 6 months to get these blood draws back? And in that meantime, like, all these cases are being dropped. And what's this holdup? What are we doing wrong?
Yeah, well, the district attorney's office told me at the time, it is harder to get a conviction on a blood draw in a drug case versus a DWI with a breathalyzer test. You have those results pretty quickly. These are sent to a lab, and the turnaround time, we know there's probably a lot of lab tests results, and they're all kind of prioritized based on the nature of the crime alleged.
Sure.
And so in this case, I was just going off of what I could see in the court records. And at least one of her cases, the one involving the child, was dismissed pending the results of a blood draw. And, in that dismissal note, the state says we intend to refile when we get these results, that we can use the evidence. But I didn't see any indication that charges were ever refiled in any of these cases.
Gabby, I think everyone watching this story has the same reaction. What's the problem? Where in the system is the breakdown? Judges, prosecutors, police, it feels like everyone's done their job, except at some point the prosecutors in this case haven't been following up or making sure they get the blood work back, or making sure when they do that it doesn't just fall through the cracks somehow. Do you feel like you have a definitive answer about where this flaw is?
That's a great question, and I try to get that answer from some of the players involved, right? You're right. The police are doing their job. They're pulling over what they see as an impaired driver, having these interactions, spending hours with this woman in some cases.
Sure.
Tracking down the father. He shows up and said, I've been trying to find my kid for 2 weeks in one of those instances. As far as what is the problem, wherein lies the problem, I think, at least at the time that I was doing this story, caseloads for prosecutors in Bernalillo County were kind of insane. 60 to 80 felony cases each prosecutor is handling. That's a lot to track. I'm not saying that is an excuse, but it's a lot. Bernalillo County has a lot going on, a lot of issues. Also, I think this speaks to another issue I was just having a conversation with Larry Barker about. The mental health resources in this state are acutely lacking, and it's something that our lawmakers have tried to address. But the whole idea of, when you get a touch point with somebody, getting them into help and treatment, that's a whole other problem.
Sure.
And do you think a lot of these, because they have such a heavy caseload, they forget that we don't refile these charges because they're already on to other things, and they forget, these cases just get ignored?
I don't want to say that prosecutors forgot, because I don't know that is truth. I can't speak for the prosecutors in this case, but I can only look at the court records and see the documents that have been filed. And the last one, is a noli prosecco, case dismissed, with the line, the state intends to refile, pending the result of a blood draw. And then when you don't see charges refiled, you or I can only guess why, unless, I go back to the table and ask them.
And of course, we didn't have a fatality either in this case, which suddenly that jumps up if you're a prosecutor on your list of you're not going to lose track of fatality. If this is a, vehicular homicide sort of case or one of these sorts of, that jumps into a whole other level. So I wonder too if it's just somehow not prioritized, because no one is hurt physically until this crossing guard gets struck, right?
Yeah, and that's great bodily harm. That guy almost died.
Yeah.
That was horrific to watch.
Yeah, I don't mean to minimize it at all.
Yeah,
that was a horrific,
awful,
horrific crash.
Awful,
Yeah.
and surprising that she didn't kill him.
Yeah.
What does he think? Have you been able to touch base with him that, she never saw punishment for what she did to him?
Yeah, I tried to find that crossing guard. I had his name through the court documents. The school was on Yale and Gibson, that Mission Achievement and Success Charter School, MOS. And it happened right there on Yale. He was in a median. And at the time, I couldn't reach family members before the story aired, but family members called me the morning after that story aired. And just, we had the phone call I had hoped to have, which is just to learn more about how devastating this was for him. He almost lost his life, head trauma, broken bones, and it just impacted him in a big way. And they were really upset to learn that the case was dismissed.
Yeah. Gabby, we're going to have much more about addiction when we come back, and also I want to talk to you about this reporting as well. We'll be back in just a second.
Welcome back, and we're joined by our investigative reporter, Gabrielle Burkhart. Such a pleasure having you here today and breaking down this case from November of 2022. Gabby, at the end of your story, you can hear one of the officers, it was a state police officer, telling this woman, hey, this is going to be hard to kick. This isn't easy, because she's saying, I need to go to rehab. I need, to get help. And I need to quit getting these DWIs. And the officer had some really, you could tell the officer was really trying to give her some advice and try to help, because you could tell she needed something.
Yeah, that female officer really did spend a lot of time talking with her. And that's the thing that you don't get to really see as the public, or we don't have time on air oftentimes to show those interactions. But Madalene was pretty forthright, saying, I'm withdrawing bad from fentanyl, she said. And the officer was just telling her, this DWI is the least of your problems. You really need to work on getting clean and showing it for a long time. This officer knew that she had a child and was just having kind of that heart-to-heart, as a mom. I don't know if this officer was a mother, but she was just kind of giving her the advice of if you really are serious, be serious for a long time, because it's a hard road addiction. And I've done a lot of stories on fentanyl. It's highly addictive. It's super cheap. It's so small. It doesn't smell like marijuana or some of the other drugs, so it's really easy to conceal. So I was kind of struck by this woman being open about her addiction. Well, I did do fentanyl. I smoked fentanyl. I'm withdrawing. It's like a cry for help, right? So I hope she got the help that she needed.
Yeah, I think when I see this story, and we've talked about this before, Jess, in covering different crimes, you have these two feelings at once. One is, oh my God, I'm so disgusted that no one is locking her up and getting her off the street. She's hurting people. She's putting everyone at risk. And you're just sort of angry about this. And then the other side of you is just absolutely sympathetic. And I've said this before in the newsroom. You think, well, this is just a walking disease. This is not even a person. And I don't mean to dehumanize the person. I actually mean to, give them credit for the fact that this isn't really them. This really is a disease that's taken them over, right? And they're just in this cycle. And as you mentioned, Gabby, she misses an appointment for her addiction treatment, and then you go to the back of the line. There aren't a million of those beds waiting for people who are have substance abuse problems, and so the minute that happens, maybe you slip through the cracks and you're back into this cycle again.
Yeah, it's really devastating, and I just go back again to people with children, because I just have a real soft spot in my heart for somebody who's trying their best. It's hard. I don't know what all the efforts were made for this woman to get help, but Yeah, kicking fentanyl is a really hard thing. She mentioned Suboxone. That's a drug that, sometimes is used to kind of wean you off of fentanyl, but it is another drug she was trying to kick, it sounded like. So, there are certain people and stories that we cover through our careers and through journalism that just kind of stick with you, and you wonder, like, how are they doing? How is the kid? How, are they okay?
Yeah.
But like you said, Dana, it's just really hard to reconcile those two things, right? She's putting the public at risk. People who were driving on that road, their safety was at risk. And you have to kind of balance that with criminal justice, but also keeping people safe and giving people the help they need, which is really a complex issue that it seems like our lawmakers are struggling with.
It has been a really big struggle, and it is a problem that we're just seeing in our community. We are seeing, when I've talked to our mayor and when I've talked to, the governor's mentioned it, like, taking these people to jail, it's still not getting them the help that they need. And then we just see them repeat and repeat, and that they've really got to get that treatment, and we don't have the facilities. But we have seen here in Albuquerque, we've opened up the Gateway Center where there's an option there where we're starting to see, where they can take them and help them get the treatment that they need. Still, is it enough? No, like we still need to start looking at like making more facilities like this open. But it has just been this huge issue, and I feel like we're getting a little bit better at trying to solve it, but we're still facing a lot of problems with it and getting them the help they need.
And Suboxone, here's something that is supposed to sort of wean you away from fentanyl, right? But I don't think people realize if you're on Suboxone, you wake up every morning fiending, right? Mm-hmm. You are sick until you get your Suboxone, or maybe you fall off the wagon and go get some fentanyl, all right? That is a daily sort of battle that even staying on the Suboxone is a real battle for people who are addicted in this way. This is not like, I'm on Suboxone, I'm fine. It's like, it's every 24 hours you're back in this fight.
Yeah, it's really devastating. But we just had a conversation with Larry and a criminal law professor from UNM who has a lot of expertise in this issue. And he was talking about some of the recent legislation that was passed. Will we see, the recent legislation talking about behavioral health and all of those things? Will we see that make an impact? And the unfortunate reality is probably like not for years, if so, because even though judges may have more discretion with where to send somebody now in court, those places don't really exist yet in New Mexico. We don't have enough providers. We don't have enough facilities, mental health facilities to send people to. And then, there's the whole balancing of civil rights as well. You can't force somebody to take a medication or force somebody into a mental health treatment facility oftentimes.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how our state moves forward with this. Like you saw that in New York, where police are able to say, okay, you are not well and we're going to hospitalize you. And we are going to, they've kind of shifted on how they handle these sorts of cases. We don't have the facilities, so we can't do that. Like, where would we take them? So that's, another approach that some states are doing, but we just don't have a place to take them.
There is, going down the sort of the drug addiction rabbit hole that we are, I have read about drugs that are like Suboxone, where you take an injection and the injection lasts a month, and it's been tried in different jail systems where you have people who are in jail. They're not in prison, they're in jail. So they're probably, so these are misdemeanor charges. They're less than a year. And they're signing up. Yeah, I'm addicted. Give me the shot. And then they don't wake up fiending every morning. And it's very interesting. It sounds like it accumulates underneath the skin as a little bump. And then over the course of a month, your body absorbs it, right? And then it's gone. And then after a month, you need another injection. But I think I am very hopeful that in the scientific world, we get closer to a fix like this, because people are signing up for this willingly because they don't want to be sick every morning. If you give them a shot and they can be well for a month, and then it speaks to maybe the possibility after you get out of jail. People are like, I'm getting out. Can I get my shot so that I can have a month at least when I get out, where I'm not on the streets fiending, right? So I'm really hopeful that we have some more medical interventions that just make sense for people too. Yeah, yes. And then you get into the public policy issue with cost, and I forget what the cost was, but it certainly was cheaper than housing someone in jail for an entire year, right? Yeah. So that if you could put that money up front and have these people be productive and out in the world working and getting away from their addiction, that would be well worth it.
The mobile clinics are a thing. I've had a lot of conversations with some of the people who are trying to work on the facilities and the providers here, and there are mobile clinics who do that, but it's another challenge, right? Getting people into those programs you know, making sure insurance is covering them. Where are they? Finding them, giving them a caseworker, making sure they're staying on top of it.
Yeah.
It's a challenge.
Yeah. Gabby, some great reporting. And when we talk about the holes in the system, judicial, the police, you know, addiction care, all of these things, one thing that is working is stories like this. So we really appreciate this kind of deep dive where at least it's out there, a light is being shined on it, and hopefully from that, good things happen.
Yes, great reporting, great thorough reporting, and bringing a light to all these issues.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dean and Jess.
Thanks for taking the time. And that'll do it for this episode of New Mexico Crime Files. We'll see you next time.